Hi everyone, it's Lisa. I'm videotaping on behalf of the Paris Bourbon County Library. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to show you another craft, and this craft is using pot holders. And we're going to be making a pot holder sunglass holder, but we're also going to be making a pot holder organizer for your purse. And so let's go ahead and get started on the materials that we're going to need. First, you're going to need a pot holder, and by the way, there is a kit available for this. So in that kit you will find a pot holder and then the instructions for how to do this, or some examples of how to do this. So we need a pot holder, we need needle and thread, and you can use your sewing machine instead if you'd prefer. I like to put embellishments on there. So I've got some buttons. Some of these are vintage buttons. Most of them are vintage buttons. You're also going to need some pins, and I'm using tape to help me just a little bit, and then I'll need my scissors as well. This is very easy. It's very inexpensive. If you're interested in one of the kits, please feel free to stop by the library and request one of those. So I'm going to be making, let me explain this one first. This has been stitched, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but this is a contrasting thread, and I did that so that you could see how I had stitched across the bottom and all the way up to this corner. And then all I simply did was pull that back, and I stitched a button on. You do not have to pull it back. On this one, I am not. I'm going to keep it all the way to here and do the stitching on the edge here. So this is machine stitched. If you do not have a machine, do not stress. I'll show you a simple stitch that you can use on the sides that will hold this together firmly. Now on the front of this one, I decorated a little bit, and we'll discuss that in a few minutes, how you can embellish them. But this one is perfect for your glasses. And it also has this, so it can be hung right next to the door on your way out. Okay, so let's look at the process of making one of these. Okay, I'm back. I found my needle. Sorry about that. Several projects ago, I showed you how to make a blanket stitch. And I've tried a fat blanket stitch, but this is so thick that I couldn't find a needle that would allow me to go through there and make that stitch. And so what I'm doing is I'm doing a blanket stitch, but I'm doing it on the bottom. So I'm just going to be seeing just a little bit of my stitch as I go along the bottom here. I'm also using a contrasting thread so that you can see this just a little bit better. But a blanket stitch is simply measuring your distance, and I'm going to take a little bit of each side of my pot holder, and I'm going to pull it through almost to the end. And you can see I've got this thread here, kind of a little loop. I'm going to go through that and pull. And that just makes a nice little stitch right up the center there. I'll do a couple of more, and then I will pause and come back on and show you the finished product. So if you do not have a sewing machine, I suggest this little stitch. It's decorative. I even like the fact that this is a salmon colored thread. I think that looks good. So let's do one more. A little of both sides of the pot holder, and then back through that loop. And that brings my stitch right up through the center. I'm going to finish this up real quick, and I'll be right back on. Okay, I've got the end of my basket stitch all the way around, and I reinforced it by just making several little stitches there, and I trimmed that up. I can now remove my pins. And on this one, I am not pulling that back. I'm just leaving it as is. And once again, you can see how easy that is to make your own eyeglass holder out of a pot holder. So let's go on to our last one. In the last one, I'm going to open up my pot holder so that the hook, I don't want to say hook, but this piece of fabric is in the center, because I'm going to put a large button on the other side, and that's going to keep this together. Now I used tape to kind of determine where I wanted my pieces. But now that's not working so well. So I am going to put a few pins. But what I've done is I've used 4 Ziploc bags, the snack size, and I have placed those in the center of my pot holder. And I'm going to use a pin to help me hold that side in place, and a pin on the other side to help me hold it in place. Just a little bit more. The tape's working somewhat, but I think this is going to be a little bit better. Now I'm going to machine stitch this. If you don't have a machine stitch, you could just do a basic small hand stitch up the center, and that will hold these. I do want to turn the camera towards our sewing machines that we have here in the library and tell you just a little bit about those. I think you can see that. This is the Eversewn. It is the Sparrow 25. We ordered these several years ago, and I've been lucky enough to teach several people how to stitch and how to sew. My hope is that once we eventually get back into the library, we will be able to again offer classes on sewing. So just to know that we have these beautiful, wonderful machines that we can get you sewing on. So I'm going to move away from the camera for a moment. I'm going to stitch up the center of our pot holder, and I'll be right back on. Okay everyone, I'm back on, and you can see that from the back I used a contrasting thread here so that you could see it, but I just stitched right down the center of this, and the tape and the 2 pins help to hold it in place. You will note that there's still some tape in there, and I'll need to pull that off, but it just rips right out of there. And these are so handy because you can put your items, travel bag items, just little things that you need, toothbrush, toothpaste, things that you don't necessarily want to keep floating around your purse or your suitcase, etc. And then this, we're going to put a button on real quick. So, cute idea. Purse caddy, suitcase caddy, and you could put more bags in there if you wanted to. Now I need to choose a button, and I think this is going to be the button. I like the fact that it has a shank on the back, which means this is easily going to go through that loop that's at the top. So real quickly, I'm going to kind of estimate where my button should go. And you have to knot that thread. Common mistake. Let's remark that. There we go. The shank is the loop on the bottom of your button, and most of these do not have shanks, they just have button holes. So I'm going to go in and out just a couple of times to secure my button. This is a vintage button. Again, another thing I collect, vintage buttons. And just for video purposes, we'll go one more, but I probably will end up going more than just the one more. I'll leave that in there, but I do want to show you how to finish. And there you go. An easy, easy purse caddy. Now I'm leaving my thread attached because I do want to stitch that button on a couple of more times. But let's discuss just a few things. First off, you can decorate this. Now I'll show you how I decorated this when I'll explain it to you. This is not my favorite. I was just kind of experimenting to see what my possibilities were, and I just took a template and shaded in with a paint pen, a black paint pen, my letter, my initial, Lisa. And then I'm not very artistic, but that's my version of a sunflower. Now, to add to this, because I think this would be cute for, I want to say a teenager, but more so maybe an older kid. But you could easily attach these charms. I have one that says love. I have one that has a little flower on it with a stone in the center. So these would be beautiful on there. You could easily something that would allow you to attach that on there, some kind of clip. Okay, so that's a really great idea for that as well. So here is our finished product. Here's another embellishment, an iron-on. And I also found this one. I believe these are very, very old, but some way of attaching that to the top would also give a nice effect. I hope you've enjoyed this craft. If you choose to make this, please post it to our Facebook site. Don't forget there is a kit available for it. I do believe it also contains some of the Ziploc bags, so that if you choose to make, instead of the eyeglass case, the purse caddy, then you could make it with the Ziploc bags. I hope you enjoyed this, and keep crafting.